I managed to get a haircut before going into lockdown on Saturday.
This is my new style is called the 8 weeks at home. It's anyone can do it. It's really, if you're liking the look of this, take it to your barber or take it to your hairdresser next time you can go, and that's all you'll have to do.
Yeah, I don't know if your hair keeps growing up and outwards. It's almost like you're doing a Jadeja. It's not curly enough. You need to encourage the curl. Maybe do a home perm, keep it growing, and you too might have hair like Jadeja.
The best hair in cricket.
Best hair in cricket. Maintain it now. In the meantime, let's get on with the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Timed Out. What a week. We've had enthralling tests going on in different parts of the world. We've got the wash up of Australia in Bangladesh. The World T20 World Cup fixtures announced. It's all going off. And I'm happy, as always, to have Lockie McCurdy, the great Lockie McCurdy, with his 8-week hairdo, joining me today. And we are so lucky to have all of you here with us watching now. If you are joining us live, like Thor News is joining us live. No, Thar News. I thought it was Thor News, but Rich.
You got a bit of Marvel in your head at the moment. You've been watching the Marvel movies.
It's a long time in lockdown. There are a lot of hours to fill. Thar News, hello to you. Anyone else who's out there, do send us your questions or comments in the live chat. We'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, well, the way this works is we've got 90 seconds each to have a chat about some various topics. Lockie is, as always, the timekeeper, the master of time. He's ready to go. So let's bring up our first topic of the day. And it is Langer gets fired up in Bangladesh. Well, it feels like it's all been going off with this. Now, since we last did this show, obviously there was an incident with that's been reported in Bangladesh with mostly Gavin Dover, the Australian team manager, being unhappy about footage that was put up on Twitter by a member of the social media or the cricket.com.au team. Justin Langer got involved with it at the end, and it was all apparently quite heated. And the fallout from that has been huge. The interesting chiming in, I suppose, has come from Adam Gilchrist, who has suggested on his SEN talk show that really journalists, he's also sort of suggested journalists have a bit of a vendetta against Justin Langer, but also that Cricket Australia should decide what they're going to do about Justin Langer's contract now for the summer ahead, stick or twist, whatever it is, and just decide now, because there are rumours coming out of the camp about people not being happy. Whenever there are rumours coming out, they're going to fester. I genuinely do not think any of the cricket media has any sort of vendetta against Justin Langer. I don't think most journalists really care that much who's the coach. They're just, whoever's there, they deal with, and that's fine. But I'll just put it this way: when a team is winning, there don't tend to be leaks because people aren't that unhappy. So, and journalists are going to report what people tell them to. That's their job. So if they find stuff out, they're going to report it. That's just how it works. So that's nothing to do with a vendetta. But these things have a habit of snowballing. You go first, and then I'll bring in some other comments. Go, Lockie.
I certainly did find it really interesting. I thought it was almost like the story had its little cycle of being in the news around what happened in Bangladesh. The players had been back in quarantine for a few days until it kind of leaked out, and it was kind of coming to its end until Gilly then decided to have his say over on Western Australian radio, and it kind of gave another 3 or 4 days life to this story in a sense, because he brought up this new element of it's a journalistic vendetta against Justin Langer. And for me, I think you've got to look more at those internal problems, like you're saying, that a happy, enthusiastic, good morale within a squad, you're not getting these leaks that are coming out. But at the end of the day, that's what's happened, and it's what's been happening for the best part of almost 12 months or less than 12 months. But for this year, after the India series, obviously we saw all those reports that came out following the India home series where players shared that they were unhappy with Justin Langer, and what we heard that followed afterwards was Tim Payne personally addressing each of those concerns, and that obviously that camp on the Gold Coast that was meant to bring the team back together. But 2 T20 series losses, and suddenly that's all seems to have been thrown out the door. Obviously it's a real concern going into a tournament like the World Cup where you need your squad to be together. But for me, the biggest thing is it just takes away from Bangladesh's win, that it's these incredible moments of celebration that are fantastic for world cricket, and yet we're talking about the Australian coaches' reaction to them, which is kind of disappointing.
Yeah, well, the good thing is at least we spoke a lot about Bangladesh on this very show throughout. So in case anyone says no one talked about Bangladesh or gave them some kudos, you can go back and look at all the previous episodes of this and you will find that we did. So Bharat Prakash says, hey guys. Hey Bharat, how you doing? Hope you're well. And we've got one, well, this is coming up. Diraj Ragtar says about last night's win. Where did this win leave Ashwin? I mean, when you've got like, and you can afford to leave someone like Ashwin out. That's just what I kept thinking. But look, let's bring up our next topic. We will get to that point. I do believe we'll make sure we get to it. Here we go. In fact, it's a lead-in for India's nail-biting win over England at Lords. And another one from Bharat Prakash, who says, should Siraj have been the man of the match? Well, player of the match. That's what we say these days because they get it for playing, not for manning. You know how it works. But it was a sensational win. It was not surprising to anyone who's watched India over the past 8 months in particular, certainly anyone in Australia. And I just had so many of those classic elements. A couple of things. England's top order. Wow, that's a real concern that all three in the top order have got ducks in this test. That both openers for the first time in an England home test went for a duck in that final innings. After Joe Root had done so much work to set them up. But then Joe Root, some of his captaincy, he just let the game drift. And they became so distracted by all the sort of argy-bargy. There was a lot of talk out there. It was very intense. They got distracted. They were just, the short balls, and they got sucked into the same thing that Australia got sucked into. In Australia, Sydney, at the Gabba. We've seen that happen before. And I'm just really disappointed that Virat Kohli declared when he did, because I desperately wanted Shami to be the highest scorer. That was a really good innings from Shami too. It wasn't swinging Shami that, we've seen in the past. It was a much more measured innings from him, I thought. At the end of the day, definitely the best team won on this occasion, but England really let it slip, and their batting, they've got some really big... Yeah, that's the sound of England's batting order. That is the sound of their batting order.
I found it really funny going into that final day of the match. I was going, India's tail is going to wag. I was 100% confident in it, but not in the way that it did. I was like, they're gonna fall into the Rishabh Pant trap. He's going to go nuts. He's going to score at a 50 or 60, and he's going to take this game away from England. And then he's out within the first couple of overs, and here I am thinking, oh, well, okay, England, you guys have got your wits about you. You're going to be able to do this. Then when Sharma falls, Jadeja falls, you're thinking, all right, 8 for 209. You're in a very good position here, England. Now, all you have to do is don't screw it up.
They screwed it up?
Yeah, they screwed it up. They fell into the exact same trap. It's funny you mentioned that in terms of what Australia did here in Sydney and at the Gabba. I've got that in my notes here ahead of this show, talking about how instead of just going, all right, let's just focus on line and length and try and get these wickets as quickly as possible, it was kind of like, all right, let's rough up the bowlers a little bit. Let's try and intimidate a little bit ahead of the rest of this tour. Instead of just going, let's just try and wrap up this test match because we are in a dominant position and we need to get this win because it's the second test match. To go 1-0 up in this series would have been hugely important, and England let that chance slip. I mean, Shami and Bumrah, that is an incredible partnership of 89 runs. And the standing ovation they got walking back into the long room, I thought was absolutely fantastic. Some great access there that we saw. But Yeah, obviously Jimmy Anderson going wicketless in that bowling innings is a bit of concerning. He wasn't able to have that impact. And look, you touched on the England batting. It's going to be a topic for the weeks leading into this Ashes series, but just no one else was able to go with them. Joe Root top scoring with 33. Just
He didn't
massive
score as
concern.
It didn't score as much as Shami. I think Shami scored more, got a higher total at Lords now. Someone tweeted me than a whole heap of players, including Virat Kohli, maybe even Tendulkar. I don't know. There was a list and it was quite amazing. But yeah, and all the people going off about how slow Pujara was scoring, look, he tired them out and frustrated them, and there was something of that in there. Some of those fielding positions that Joe Root was setting, he's put his hand up and accepted a lot of responsibility, which is tough when he scored as much.
He's got to. Yeah.
To Bharat's point about should Siraj have been man of the match, player of the match, there's a really good shout for that, isn't it? And it just goes to show, though, I think that's a great example of quite a batting-friendly pitch, because let's face it, that was a batting-friendly pitch. It highlights how crappy they were. You know, there were some good performances in the first innings by some Indian batters. But, you know, it's the second inning. It really was the bowlers who pulled that match out and saved it, both with bat and ball. And it still goes to a batter. I just think that says a lot about cricket still, doesn't it?
Yep.
Now, would you like to tackle, there's one there from Krish Sohel who says, England players deviated from the direction in taking the revenge of the bounce of bowling on James Anderson. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so. Yep. And back to Dheeraj's point about last night's win, where does that win leave Ashwin, do you reckon, Lockie?
I think it obviously depends on the surfaces that we see for the rest of the tour. That, I mean, for the most part, you had Ravindra Jadeja, who didn't have that much of an impact really in this test. Like, it was obviously the pace bowlers who set the victory up for India in a way. I mean, he went wicketless through, I think, 26, 27 overs across both innings. So, I mean, I don't see any of the pace bowlers being dropped, and I don't see him being dropped because of what he offers with the bat as well. So, look, you know what you get. If Ravichandran Ashwin is to come back into the side, I think you know what you're going to get. He's going to be a world-class spinner, and he's someone who you want in your team, but they don't probably need to rush him back into the side anytime soon because they've got a pretty good balance with their bowling lineup. And Siraj, I absolutely love what he brings to that team, so I'm hoping he gets a few more games this test series.
Yeah, I do too. And I mean, Australia fell in love with him when he was here, didn't they, really? There was so much admiration for Siraj and what he did. But, you know, it's a tough one. Like, Ashwin is an absolutely brilliant player. And it always shocks me when he's not in the side. It's an embarrassment of riches if he's not there. And I'm sure he will play. I'm sure he will play in the remainder of this series. Who knows, too? Maybe pitches will be a bit drier as their series wears on. There's still another 3 tests to go. So we'll see. I don't think won't just not see him. And I just one from Navdeep Singh before we move on. If India wins series, the Ashes will be overhyped 2 teams that lost in their homeland. Wow, yeah, that's true. It's basically what we should do if India win this series, and, you know, there's every chance they will, maybe we should just give the Ashes to India, and basically Australia and England is the playoff for runner-up. How's that for a suggestion?
Well, I was going to say, maybe if we do that, may as well save all the issues with England coming down under. I mean, just give it to India. Let all the cricketers put their feet up for a few months and just get on with 2022 when it comes around.
Oh, God, I can't wait for 2022. 2021 sucks. All right, our next topic coming up is... Navdeep Singh's covering it up. There it is. The other test match. West Indies 1-wicket victory over Pakistan. I'll let you go first, Lockie. I can tell you're excited.
This is the perfect example of why we love test cricket. I think it's 2 teams who haven't been as consistent over the last few years, just specifically in Test cricket. Obviously, we're talking here. Obviously, Pakistan and West Indies have both been probably more dominant in the shorter formats of the game. But when it comes to Test cricket, they haven't been able to get a foothold in the game in the last sort of 5 years or so. So it was always going to be quite a tantalising series in terms of seeing how the two sides matched up. We've got really strong sides. Obviously, you've got Babar Azam, Azhar Ali for the Pakistan side. And then in that West Indies lineup, you've got the likes of Jason Holder, Kemar Roach, Craig Brathwaite at the top of the order. It was a really exciting matchup. And what we got was a test that absolutely delivered. I mean, from start to finish, it was in the balance. We didn't know how it was going to end. And that last sort of not even a couple of hours, that last half an hour or so where you had Kemar Roach and Jaden Seals trying to survive that Pakistan attack. And they put together, what was it? I think a 17-run partnership in the end. Kemar Roach hitting it through, I think, sort of backward point or so, like somewhere around there to get the winning runs, and the celebrations for a one-wicket win. They're so rare that it's just fantastic to see the celebrations and how much it means to the teams. Obviously, Pakistan captain Babar Azam kind of said, look, at the end of the day, it's a good result for cricket. Obviously, we were on the wrong side, but it was pretty fantastic to be a part of. And it's something that I hope we just see more of, because obviously in home conditions around the world, we're used to seeing one side dominate, one team struggle. But this was just perfect. I mean, give me 10 of these tests in a series. Just that's what I want more of. There it is.
Yeah, look, it was fantastic. And I think the thing for me, we were talking about India and England, and there would have been a lot of attention focused there. And then already, there's talk about the Ashes and what's going to happen here. And it's just too lopsided sometimes, the attention that world cricket gives to those sides. When you have two teams going at each other head to head in such a tight contest. So it was brilliant that we were able to at least get that out here as well. But the thing about these two teams too is that you go back, I think it was 20 years ago that they had a one-wicket victory. It was a really similar one in Antigua. And now in Kingston, you have this exciting game as well, coming down to that sort of last wicket stand. And both of those sides, in the 20 years since, have really had difficulties with administration, with players, with incursion of T20, and when it comes to Test cricket, keeping that Test side established. So this was really, really, for me, wonderful to see. And I was really happy to see sort of the master and the student, if you like, in Kemar Roach and Jaden Seals have that partnership at the end. And Kemar Roach said that he'd never really been in that sort of situation, batting with the tail like that before. And he was just overcome. He's taught Jaden Seals so much. And the other thing I will say, how great was Ian Bishop's commentary at the end. He is a commentator for big moments, and you absolutely saw why, because he was the perfect person to commentate at that moment for the West Indies win. And it was absolute music.
He gets it right every single time, without a doubt.
Yeah, he's a class act. Okay, let's bring up our next topic of the day. Uncertainty surrounds Australian season. I'll let you go first.
Well, obviously, I guess the first part of this is that we've seen in the last couple of days that Cricket Australia has confirmed that those players involved in the IPL will be allowed to resume their commitments to their franchises ahead of the T20 World Cup, with that sort of potential tri-series involving Afghanistan, and just that's been cancelled. So they want to get cricket in their legs, so they're allowed to go back to the IPL, which I think is a win for all the cricketers involved, because what we're seeing from cricketers around the globe is that's kind of going to be that's going to be where a lot of the players get their sort of confidence going into the T20 World Cup in the UAE and Oman. And obviously it's great that they're going to be exposed to the conditions of the World Cup. So I think that's a real positive. We saw literally an hour ago or 2 hours ago the T20 World Cup fixtures announced for the group stages. I mean, we've got them here that we're going to be seeing in the first game of Group 1 will be Australia taking on South Africa, which really, if Australia want to make it through the group stage, is a must-win fixture for them, while we've got India, Pakistan opening up Group 2 in that incredible encounter that it's going to be on the 24th of October. The other ones that kind of stand out for me are Australia, West Indies, the last group game of Group 1 in the Super 12s on the 6th of November, which again could be sort of the way you see that group panning out is England probably finishing top with Australia and West Indies 2 and 3. So that could likely be a game that decides who goes through the semi-final. So some really exciting matchups there. And obviously there's the group games beforehand to decide who goes into that Super 12 stage. So some really exciting things there. But you've got some other parts and other news ahead of the Australian summer, I guess, that we've got to look at.
Well, before we even get to that, the Australian summer, even though it's not summer per se, it's spring. But before we even get to that, things are all over, because we're now, as you and I both here in New South Wales, I'm in regional New South Wales, you're in Sydney, we're locked down. Australia is now basically a bunch of different countries. For anyone who's watching outside Australia, they've basically got hard borders between the states. And India's women, now Australia have just announced their squad for the women's squad for the series against India. But where's it all happening and how's it going to work? Because at the moment it's very difficult. They were supposed to start in Sydney. That ain't going to happen. And then they were supposed to, end up going over to Perth for the test. Well, at the moment, Perth have got really, really strict sort of protocols about having to be vaccinated and show your negative test. That there were fears that they might have to quarantine if they went over to Perth. I know this within the camp. So they were all like, they don't know what's going on. It's been really difficult to actually work that out. So before we even get to that, at the moment with hard borders, if New South Wales is locked down, as some suspect it may be, until possibly November, coming out of November at the earliest, possibly later, you would imagine there won't be any cricket held here. So all their thoughts of Sheffield Shield, Marsh Cup, WBBL, even the Ashes, will they have to change around the order of matches so that you can move from one state to the other? It is a big mess. I would not like to be sorting it out.
No, I think it's going to be a very different cricket summer. I think even though last year we had one that was COVID affected, I think going into this year okay, I was being played off. That's
no. Someone... I overrule the duck. You can finish.
Thank you. Obviously, it's going to be very different this year with the Delta variant and everything going on here. But look, I guess the solace here is in Australia, we have seen in the last sort of month or so a sharp uptake in the vaccination rates, with premiers and prime ministers kind of saying, hopefully that means we'll be able to kind of make the restrictions a bit more lenient. I mean, Western Australia's Premier has stated that travel for those wanting to come to WA, they're going to have at least one vaccine or one shot of the COVID-19 vaccine. So there's going to be a lot of moving parts, I think, to this summer. And yeah, while the weather here in Australia, it's been a little bit summer-like here in Sydney, it's still a long way away from any cricket happening, I think.
It is. And those vaccination rates you're talking about, the probably best case scenario, I think they're talking about us reaching those rates maybe by the end of October, if they're lucky. So that means for the domestic season, I don't know, it's going to be pretty difficult. And I feel very sorry for people who are trying to work out the logistics of the planning, because it all changes so quickly here. And we sit here and watch the tests going on overseas, certainly the ones in England with full houses and everyone moving about, and it's like, this is turnaround from last summer, isn't it? This is our turn now. This is our turn. But we shall see. Thanks everybody who joined in today with your comments and questions. I'm sorry if we couldn't get through to all of them, but we do try and get as many in as we can. Thanks to you, Lockie. Keep on going with that hair growing. Give us a follow on Twitter. Do please give us a like, subscribe, and share, if you will, as well, because we enjoy bringing it to you from Sporting News Australia. We really do. This makes our day. It's the best thing that's happened to me all day. Anyway, we're going to have an early night tonight because we won't be staying up late watching cricket. and we will be back very soon with another episode of Timed Out. Till then.